I'm gonna go over each deck. This is for Pittsburgh Regionals. I'm gonna go over the meta percentage I expect the decks to be, as well as how good I think the decks are and where they will stand in the meta. The first one is Lost Zone Giratina, which will probably be the most popular deck of the tournament. It's been doing very well overall. I am still not a huge fan of the deck though. I'm not gonna put it. It's not like the D tier deck that I had it at once. Overall, it has like fine matchups. It'll probably be around. It'll be the most popular deck of the tournament for sure. It'll probably be around 15%. But I'm gonna put Lost Tina in the B tier. The more I've played this, the more I continue to still play with the deck. I'm still not a huge fan of it. It's solid, but not a deck that I would want to bring to a regional championships or any major tournament in general. So Lost Tina for me, it did move up. It used to be a D tier deck for me. It has moved up to being a B tier deck now. But yeah, about probably 15% of the meta is what we can expect from Lost Tina at Pittsburgh. Gardevoir is my only, because it's probably gonna be my only S tier deck. I still think Gardevoir is the standalone S tier deck in the meta, and will still be fairly popular as well, like it has been. Probably around 12% will be my prediction. Although my predictions for recent metas have not been, well, I guess it was at Worlds. Worlds is always a little bit weird for predictions. Like, I did not expect Lugia to be the most popular deck day 1 of Worlds at 15%. I did not expect, what was the most popular deck day 2? Lost Box at like 20% or something, which was actually absurd. That was kind of insane. But yeah, Gardevoir is going to be my only S tier deck in this tier list, and probably will fall around the 12% mark. It seems like a lot of people seem to tend to shy away from Gardevoir as a play in general because of like the perceived skill level needed to play the deck. So I think that's why it probably isn't gonna. I think if less people felt that way, then more people would. The Gardevoir probably would be the most popular deck in the tournament. But a lot of people seem to like shy away from playing Gardevoir because it is perceived as like a harder deck to play. I need to put a little more time into it. Lost Box, put in the A tier. Like I said, Gardevoir's my only S tier deck. There's a lot of ways to play Lost Box right now, and I'm not sure of what the best possible way to play it is. Some people have been doing Kyogre lately. Kyogre Lost Box was the only build to actually make top 8 at Worlds. I think some form of Lost Box is for sure A tier. I'm not sure if it's Kyogre or not Kyogre, but the other versions of it are probably like B and C tier. So there's like Kyogre. I mean, Sablezard really isn't a deck anymore at all. So it's basically just like Kyogre versus Turbo for the most part. I've seen some one prize type Lost Box builds, like Alex Szymanski's that he's been playing recently at League Cups and has tweeted about, is like the other build that I've been seeing going around a little bit, like one prize type stuff. So some build of Lost Box I think is tier 1 or tier A tier. The rest of them are like B and C tier. Which one is A tier though? I'm not really too sure, to be honest. I'm not sure if I would prefer to play a Kyogre or non-Kyogre build overall, or maybe even like the one prize build that like Szymanski's been playing. But yeah, some build of it's A tier, and I'm not going to break them down all into like the 3 or 4 different builds. So I'm just going to put Lost Box in general in A tier, as one of them is good. Miraidon. I actually think Miraidon's like a pretty solid deck overall. I've played a lot with it this week. I think it'll be around like a 10% deck in the meta. Oh, Lost Box will probably be around like 12. Lost Box will probably be around, I want to say 10%, but it'll be like a high 10s. It could be an above 10% type deck, where like Lost Box could be like 10 to 12% of the meta. Guardy is probably also like a 10 to 12% type deck. Miraidon is probably an 8 to 10% type deck. Like it might come in a little bit on the lower side of that. I don't think Miraidon will be more than 10% of the meta. I could be wrong about that. It's been like a super popular deck lately online, you know, like online tournaments. It's got a lot of hype behind it right now. The quad path build that Andrew Mahone kind of popularized after Worlds has been seeing a ton of play, but then we've still been seeing like Sage and Park doing well in online tournaments with the non-path build still that Sage has been playing for forever and did play at Worlds as well. So Miraidon is also a deck that I expect to be pretty popular, like a 10%, 8 to 10% for the Miraidon deck. But I don't think it's like got any, like, it's not like it doesn't have like an outstanding matchup spread or anything like that. It's just like a solid deck. It's okay. I think it actually in my opinion it struggles against the better players, because I think the matchups it struggles against the most is like Guardy and Lost Box, which better players generally tend to play Guardy and Lost Box. So I think for Miraidon to actually like do really well and like get a top 8 or win a tournament will be hard, because I think better players generally going to be doing the best. Better players tend to like stuff like Lost Box and Gardevoir. So I think it'll just be hard for Miraidon to win the tournament overall, and that's always my goal at a tournament. So I got Miraidon in the B tier. It's still a solid deck though, like overall. In general, Charizard been super underwhelming for me. Probably the best way to play it is with the Pidgeot and the Arceus. That's the question I get a lot, is Pidgeot and Arceus versus like the Lost Zone build. And Charizard will probably be around 8% of the meta. I don't think it really deserves to be 8%, but it's really the only cool new hype deck that exists. So I understand why it'll be a little bit more popular than maybe how good it actually is. So I expect to be probably around 8% of the meta. Could be a little bit lower than that. And yeah, C tier deck for me. I only have one D tier deck here as well. Chien-Pao Excalibur. I am just like super underwhelmed by this deck. Every time I play against it, see it being played. Yeah, I just don't know why anyone would actually play Chien-Pao Excalibur if their goal is to win. It just, the deck is like super underwhelming in all ways. I just, yeah, not a big Chien-Pao Excalibur fan at all. Rapid Strike, I actually think is like pretty solid right now. It's two bad matchups. Mew and Lugia have not been as popular lately. So I think for Pittsburgh Regionals specifically, it's looking like a really good play. Normally, I'd probably have Rapid Strike in like a B tier, but for the Pittsburgh Regionals meta, I got it in the A tier. I think it's actually like pretty solid right now. Lugia and Mew are the two bad matchups for this deck, but they're not looking super popular heading into Pittsburgh. They will still be there. But like Mew is probably going to be around like the 9%. Lugia probably less than that. They're not going to be like Lugia and Fusion Mew are not going to be like irrelevant decks. But when they're in the lower counts, that's like the time to play Rapid Strike Urshifu. So I think it's a decent time to play the Rapid Strike Urshifu deck right now. And Rapid Strike Urshifu is going to be like, I don't know, like a 3% of the meta deck. It's like not something you should be concerned about trying to tech against or trying to beat. It'll be a very low percentage deck, 3, maybe 4%. It has been getting more popular as it's kind of been a deck in the meta, but it's not going to reach like the 10% numbers or even close to that, I don't think. Lugia, I'm also a pretty big fan of Lugia. I am a big, even though I said I don't think Lugia will be that popular, I am actually a big fan of Lugia going into Pittsburgh. It's a deck that I personally hate playing. I just don't like how the deck functions and plays, but I do think it is a very powerful deck right now. No one's really looking at it as like a threat, it seems. No one really is in general, and yeah, I think Lugia is a pretty powerful play right now. I don't think it'll be like that popular. It's not going to be the numbers that I've seen in the past, but it is a pretty good play right now overall. I mean, there's nothing really showing up that's going to be really like a big trouble for it, especially with like Gardevoir's cutting Temple of Sinnoh and stuff like that. Like that was the one big hindrance. The big thing that I thought was holding Lugia back was Temple of Sinnoh's in Gardevoir. Gardevoir being like the most popular deck or second most popular deck really consistently. Them always have Temple of Sinnoh. Most people have pretty much not everyone in Gardevoir is cutting their Temple of Sinnohs, which I think gives a big opportunity for Lugia to have a good showing. And if Lugia does show up and do very well, that's when the Gardevoir players will put back in their Temple of Sinnohs. So if you've wanted to play Lugia, this would probably be the tournament to do it, because I don't think Gardevoirs will be running those Temple of Sinnohs. But we'll probably be about an 8% deck as well. I don't think Lugia's going to be like the 15% we've seen in the past. So probably like an 8% for the Lugia overall is what we will is what we'll see from that. Mew, I would say Mew would be less than 10% at Pittsburgh, but Mew always shows, Mew has like not been under, I think the lowest it's been is 9.3% at a major tournament. So I don't know. I mean, Mew just always shows up. So I'm going to go and make a prediction that Mew is going to be 9% of the meta at Pittsburgh. It could be its classic 10% that it's usually at. But yeah, I think last season Mew was never under 9.3% of the meta. I could be wrong on that. That's just what I remember. And I don't know. Even when I think Mew's not a really good play, and even when Mew's not a really good play, it literally always shows up at around the 12% mark or the 10% mark. So I don't see a reason why Mew wouldn't show up at around the 10% mark again. It'll pretty much all be Fusion Mew. There shouldn't be very many double turbo Mews, maybe a couple. Like there's way less Spiritomb in the Lost Zone Tina decks, so that like the only reason that you wouldn't play double turbo Mew ever is because it doesn't really have a good answer to Spiritomb. But if like the main deck that was playing Spiritomb in Lost Zone Tina isn't really playing the Spiritomb anymore, then that would be like a reasonable reason to maybe switch back to the double turbo Mew. Overall, though, I think Fusion Mew might just be the more powerful of the two options anyways. So I would recommend if you're going to play Mew to go with the Fusion Mew. And yeah, Fusion Mew, like I want to predict it to be less than 9%, but if Mew just always shows up pretty much no matter what. And when the major tournaments come around, Mew's always going to be around 10%. So around 10% for the Fusion Mew deck. Arctina, I think, is terrible right now. The most popular deck is the Lost Zone Tina. And even decks like Lugia, Rapid Strike Urshifu, Gardevoir are all favored against Arctina. You have a terrible matchup against the most popular deck in the room, and then even a decent amount of the other top decks in the room you also are unfavored against. Arctina is the worst deck of the like meta decks, not top decks. Arctina is the worst of the meta deck, so it's the only deck that's going to make its way to D tier. And last up is Palkia, which I am going to put in B tier. I'm actually a huge fan of the Palkia deck. It's a ton of fun. And it's just a very solid deck overall. I feel like no matter what matchup I really go up against as the Palkia, I feel like I always have a chance. Palkia is a deck that doesn't feel like extremely powerful, but when you actually play games with the deck, you actually have like seemingly a fine matchup against pretty much anything. All your matchups are pretty close. You're pretty much fine against anything. The deck doesn't feel like overly that it can like really pop off or is like very powerful. You can't have like ridiculously strong turns like the Lost Zone decks or like Miraidon or even Gardevoir getting like a turn 2 knockout with a Zacian on like a 2-prize Pokemon. It can't really do anything like that, but it's pretty consistent at setting up a turn 2 attack with Palkia and consistently attacking with Palkia over and over again, maybe getting a big attack with a Chien Pao or a key Greninja snipe play. Feels like the deck is pretty close to 50-50 against most decks in the meta. So yeah, I'm a pretty big fan of the Palkia deck, so I have it in the B tier as well. And this is my tier list for the Pittsburgh Regionals meta coming up this weekend. Tier list